Welcome to FreedomCast, a podcast dedicated to interviewing star icons and entrepreneurs who have encouraged others to become more healthy and active. My name is Ashton, and it's my pleasure to host you as we take another trip through the fitness industry. It's entertaining and informative, and I hope it makes fitness more exciting and special to you in your own fitness journey. FreedomCast is supported by Freedom Fitness Equipment in Charlotte, North Carolina. Freedom Fitness Equipment serves the health and fitness community nationwide, from free weights and strength equipment for home gyms and studios to cardio and conditioning equipment for commercial spaces. Check them out at freedomfitnessequipment.com. Let's get rolling with today's show. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sidney Smith. He is Try No Feet on Instagram for a reason. As you'll discover, he is a double amputee, motivational speaker, outdoorsman, and also an Ironman triathlete. So I don't know many people that are double amputees. Actually, sorry, correction. I don't know anybody who's a double amputee that has done that much. So I am super impressed. And I would love to know, how the heck are you doing a triathlon?
Oh, one step at a time, buddy.
That's amazing. So what, can you tell me a little bit about your background? Give us a little bit about your life story.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a Utah boy. I was born and raised in Utah. I grew up loving the outdoors. Absolutely anything outside is what I enjoyed: hunting, fishing, swimming, camping. That's just the way I was raised, and I love it even to this day. Sports is something that I've always wanted to do, but I struggled doing it. I was born with a disease called Charcot-Marie tooth. Okay. Also known as CMT. Okay. So I'll refer to it as that because it's just easier off the tongue. So CMT is it's a genetic progressive type of disorder that I was born with the normal body per se. And as I got older, as a younger kid, I was diagnosed with it with some deformities in my feet and some lack of strength in certain muscles. And then I had about 10 to 12 different surgeries growing up into my 20s. And then, I was in crutches all the time. And I mean, I even went horseback riding in casts and stuff like that. And then they put me in braces, kind of like what Forrest Gump wore, which ironically is when the movie came out. So everybody on the playground told me to run, Sidney, run. It was good times. I got married. I have now 4 kids. And about 6 years ago, wow, time goes by fast. Yeah, 6 years ago, the disease got so bad that I wasn't able to walk or function, or I was in just so much pain and depression and all kinds of issues that the doctors had decided that the best case scenario for me to have a little bit more of a lifestyle that I was looking for would to amputate my feet. So 2015, the deed was done, and so on. So.
Gotcha. So from there, I just talk about a little bit about some of the things you've done. I'm particularly interested in the Ironman and triathlete stuff, but I see you're also an outdoorsman and motivational speaker. Did the motivational speaking come before or after the amputation?
Way after.
Okay.
Mainly because no one likes to public speak, and if you do, I think there's a little bit of you that are full of shit because it's, I don't know, maybe there is, but no, I even to this day I get nervous still, public speaking, but the amount of people that I've talked to, the lives that I've been able to change, and people that I've just been able to help, it's just given me a purpose to do it. And so when I focus on that purpose, I don't have the fear behind it of public speaking. But it came definitely from the lessons that I've learned and overall the change of perspective that I saw life differently. I know not everybody's going to have to go through amputation to understand some of the joys in life and the motivation that you can give yourself. But I thought maybe I can give them a little piece of that and see if that seed can be planted, and maybe they could do that for themselves. But yeah, so the Ironman, that is the cream of the crop when it comes to triathlons. It's a 140.6 mile race. It's consists of a 2.4 mile swim and then 112 mile bike ride, and then you finish it off with a marathon, all under 17 hours. So,
oh my word.
I wasn't a triathlete before this. I never ran even a 5K before I lost my legs.
Wow.
So it all started really when I was in the hospital, and I actually had lost the left leg first, and then it got infected, so they had to redo it. And when they redid it, just the way my life was going, I just had the doctors cut them both off at the same time. So I was down quite a bit as far as like physically and mentally, but the physical part, I couldn't do much but just kind of do rehab and watch a lot of TV. And it was one day when I was coming off of physical therapy, the Ironman was on television.
Oh.
And so I saw that and I was pretty impressed. I didn't even think it was possible that, or humanly possible, that a person can do that much in a day. And they'd share all the stories of all the feats people have overcome and the athletes that have trained their whole life. And I don't know what it was, if it was, inspiration from God or just a fire that I needed, or the pain pills that the doctors gave me that made me feel like, hey, I can do an Ironman. And that was my goal. And that's kind of where it all stemmed from, is the decision there. And then building onto that with, learning how to walk, and then figuring out how to run with prosthetics and swim without legs, and then try to bike without feeling the pedals, and then moving on to a race, first 5K, 10K, half marathon, then sprint tries and Olympic tries and half Ironmans, and then eventually to the full Ironman.
So you were doing a ton leading even up to it. So you were gradually, so how many years did it take you to get into the full triathlon?
5.
Wow. Wow. And how many have you done since then, or is that your only one?
I've done triathlons probably in the 30s, but with Ironman, I just have one. I have it right here in my office.
Nice.
I don't know if this is recorded, but
yeah,
I got the bad boy right there.
Nice. Nice. Well, a triathlon in and of itself is no small feat.
Yeah.
And are there different, I'm trying to remember, because I was looking into this for some reason. Are there versions of Ironman triathlons or triathlons in general, different distances?
Yeah. So the sprint tri is your basic. So that's about a 3 mile run. And then it's like a 12-mile bike ride, and the swim's like a half mile. And then Olympic is twice that distance. And then the half Ironman is basically half an Ironman. And I did about 6 half Ironmans prior, because it took a whole year of just dedicated training specifically for this race, because there was just so many factors with the abuse on my stumps and all the issues that I've had, from other races, and how can I physically do this on prosthetics? I mean, at the time there was only 2 other amputees that had done it.
Wow.
With my specifications. And so, and I talked to them, and it's just a slow grind to build up to that point. Cause with prosthetic legs, you have to almost put up, the experts say it's about 30% more energy that you need to put into running.
Wow.
Than the average human. So I knew it was going to be challenging.
Wow. So what are, just so people can understand and kind of get in your headspace with that, what are, there's the physical challenges and demands. What are the challenges you're running into with those kind of things?
With the Ironman or with prosthetics?
With the Ironman.
Basically, the Ironman was the easy part. I mean, it wasn't easy per se, but it was the easier part. The hardest part was actually the training.
Okay.
Like I said, I didn't know how to do it. So I did get a coach that kind of worked with me on a few things. He did a lot of help with some Paralympic athletes, and I felt like he was the best fit for me. We did a lot of training, sometimes 20 to 25 hours a week. And,
Wow.
I still had a full-time job, and I had some duties with my church, and, I started, doing a little nonprofit organization on the side. And so with all those things, it was really hard to manage life and be a father and all that. And so that was probably the hardest part, was trying to stay on task. And, I never missed a workout until about 6 months into my training, or 6 months away from the race. I went on a bike ride, and I just started feeling awful and sick. And I came back to the house, and just laid there, and I started feeling this fever, and it was the weekend, and I let that fever rest over the weekend. And it wasn't until Monday where I was at 103. So I went to the doctor, and I went that morning, and I couldn't put my leg on it. It was swelled up so badly. And they took some x-rays and MRI, and they noticed that there was some growth inside the stump. And what had happened is I had a double staph infection. And so they had to go in there and do some surgery to get it out. And I thought, my race was over. And when I had the infection the first time around, when I first lost my legs, they had to cut up higher, which is, like starting over.
Yeah.
But this time around, luckily we caught it in time, where they just had to kind of do a revision, cut some of the skin, and then I have to, stitches, and let that rest for like 6 to 8 weeks. And that was kind of the big turning point, because I thought it was over. And, I got some motivation from my dad and my coach. And, I just wanted to know if it was possible. If it was possible, I felt like I could do it. And they felt like there was a small window, but we decided to take that chance and alternate my training to focus more on the biking and the swimming, and then slowly work that run in. And that way I can get back to that marathon distance within 6 months.
Wow. So if you don't mind me asking, is it possible to reinfect? Is that because of the training that you were doing, or is that just a natural consequence of having the surgery? And by no matter what you do, it's at some point it will become reinfected?
Yeah, I did, because I've actually, this has been the 4th infection I've had on the same stump. So we thought maybe there was some kind of problem with me, and one of the bacteria matched a similar bacteria that was in me the first time around. And they felt like it was something that just lay dormant. And with all my training that I would do on my stumps, I'd cut my leg with blisters, and it would bleed.
Okay.
So it break that barrier. And with the stress of my body going through all that training, the infection specialist feels like it just kind of became awakened. And of course, the other infection that came in from the cuts, that my body couldn't fight it. So
Sure.
that's what they feel has happened. So
I gotcha. So you must have an incredible family. I mean, how have they been, as far as, just mentally, physically going through this with you? And what was that experience like, still having to raise a family this entire time?
Oh, bro, they're amazing. Like that's the one thing I love about kids, children. They're innocent. They're so accepting.
Yeah.
And I felt guilty at times, especially like when we were on vacation and I had to bring all my bike stuff and swimming stuff and all my legs with us. And the kids would want to go to the lake and do something, and I have to go get my training in. And then every Saturday was pretty much wasted, because they would be 8 to 10 hour bike rides, and then I'd come home and I'm worthless. My wife, though, she was very understanding. She was patient. She knew that this drive was what was really keeping me positive about my situation.
Mm-hmm.
It was that mental distraction from being an amputee,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that I don't have feet and life is going to be different and prosthetics are expensive and people are going to look at me. All the negative things that people put on disabilities. She was worried, and she knew that this was something that would help me overcome that, or basically train my mind to ignore that noise. So she was very supportive. I couldn't have done the race without her support. There's no way. And so it was tough. She knew that it was going to be rough, but she was there. And when I crossed the finish line, she was the one that actually handed me the medal.
That's awesome.
And that the race director choreographed that for us and coordinated that for us. And it was just the most amazing feeling.
I can imagine. Talk a little bit about the outdoors part. I see you have multiple trophies and things behind you from like, or those just purely decorative.
No, yeah, they're animals that I've harvested.
Awesome.
That I've hunted in my life. They're where we live. We have elk and we have mule deer.
Cool.
And so that's been another one of my passions that helps me just grow mentally and gives me some extra focus. And I do archery, I do rifle, I didn't do everything. And then I see there's a lot of purpose behind, hunting, gathering the meat, feeding your family. There's a huge gratification that comes from that.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the human soul, so much so that I noticed that with other disabled people, whether they be paralyzed or in prosthetics like myself, that one of the things that they struggle with mentally is that they don't feel like they can contribute. And so they look at themselves as a burden. I mean, a lot of them battle that way because they're asking for help and they don't want to ask for help and they feel like they're a burden. And what the outdoors and hunting does, it almost is just a huge release and a reward for them that, hey, this is something that I could do. I can feed my family. I could provide food on the table. Yeah, sure, you can get food at the grocery store, but there's just something a little bit different when it comes to hunting. And so that's where this nonprofit organization that I help found is, where we do take people and introduce them to this lifestyle and get them, change their lives the best we can.
I would say there's probably nothing like a man going out hunting and killing something and bringing it back to his family.
Oh yeah.
I feel you there.
Well, even the women, we have some girls that are just absolutely, it's just amazing. They're just beasts, just out there doing some amazing things. Disabled, enabled bodies. They're just, yeah, it's not just a man's gig anymore. So
that's awesome. What is the organization that you started? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's called Disabled Outdoorsman. We have a Utah chapter. That's what I'm work for. And I volunteered for. I said I'm not getting paid, but we're a 501c3. We've been around for a couple of years now. This year, we have over 20 big game hunts that I'm helping on. In fact, I got one this weekend. It's the opening weekend in Utah for archery elk. I'm taking out a vet. And then I'm taking out two other guys here later in September on their archery elk. So should be an adventure. There's a lot of hard work that goes into elk. Probably one of the hardest animals to hunt with your bow in early season like this.
I can't imagine. I'm used to seeing guys, gun those things down, because I know archery is just a whole nother ball game. Can you talk a little bit about what it takes to take down one of those things? Because they're not small animals either.
No, they are not. They're big. They're, some of them are the size of a small horse, 700, 800,000 pounds. especially, a male, like in the winter, late season, as they, building up all that fat from after the rut.
Mm-hmm.
Usually that is the best time as far as opportunity and experiences to hunt them is in the rut, when they're bugling, and you can, mimic some of the calls to communicate, to find a way to get into to where the bull is. But
Mm-hmm.
it takes a lot of practice, because there's a lot of factors as far as not just art practicing your bow and fine tuning it. You want to make sure you're having the right, correct, lethal projectile, whether it be the right bullet or the right arrow. You want to make sure that you're doing the animal justice, instead of, just wounding it and then it dies on its own and in pain. Where you want a nice, ethical, clean kill. Archery, is a lot of people misinterpret that is unfair or not fair for the animal, and you can just injure them. But I've seen a lot of lethal targets hit on an animal, whether you hit them in the lungs or the heart, that they can die quite quickly, more than a pack of wolves would take down an elk.
Yeah.
But yeah, once that happens, it is the fun now ends, and it becomes a big work job where, whether you have horses or you're able to get a vehicle to it, but in most cases, these elk are not near any roads, and you have to break down the animal with the meat that you should be taking. Usually there's broken down into 4 quarters, back straps, and then, some people will take some portions of the rib meat and neck meat, and then it is a long, painful trip, multiple trips to get that meat out. So
how long, can you describe the process for getting one of those? I know with deer, it's usually stand, wait around, early morning. With elk, is it any different? Because I know I'm not familiar with Utah's terrain. Is it flat open? You can just kind of go hide from them, pop up, or?
Most of your elk are going to be in the high desert, mountainous areas. So your timber with your peaks, and elk are really funny. I've seen them in the low desert. I've seen them in, obviously in farmers' fields. But most of them are going to be in the thick, nasty mountains where you have to, climb 1,000 feet to get to certain spots where they're going to be.
Wow.
Usually the tactics that I like to do, depending on where I'm at, if I could see them from a high vantage point with optics, binoculars, or a spotting scope, then I can usually make a plan from there. If it's in the rut where I can hear them, whether they make a noise, I kind of try to judge the terrain based on the area that I've, try to look at through maps, figure out where the wind's going, kind of, make a best educated guess if they're going uphill, downhill, following the wind, going to water, feeding, sleeping, and how you can cut them off. And then at that point, whether you find that communication that they are responsive to, and just prepare for a close encounter, because these animals in the rut, they will come within. I had one elk come within 13 yards.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was intense.
I can imagine. Going back to the training and everything you were doing with the triathlon, or even the hunting, I mean, is there any, with, I say modern prosthetics, I'm not sure how far they've come, is there anything you can't do now with those that there's obviously agility concerns and that kind of thing, I'm sure, but I'm sure they've come a long way. Like what are some of the advantages, disadvantages now that you're seeing with those?
Oh man, prosthetics, I would say that there's been some moments of a plateau, and then occasionally we'll have some, some new techniques or new technology. Where I'm at, I like to keep things simple. I've had scenarios where I've had, little mini vacuums that would suck my legs on tight, and the batteries would go out, or I would accidentally bump something on a rock, and then I would lose the suction and the leg would fall off. And then I've had, where I'm at now, it's my limb is connected to a liner that has a suction cup in it and then my socket that's connected to the blade. has a one-way valve, and then I could step into the socket. It's basic that way. It's been around for quite some time. But I like it that way because I'm tough on prosthetics. I've broken legs in the mountains. Last year I had a real bad incident where I broke a prosthetic hunting, and there was nobody around, and it was had to crawl out. It was kind of a long ordeal, but I would say just like in running too, I test out a lot of feet for running, a particular running company called Phil Hour.
Yeah.
They make some amazing feats. They're out there in Chattanooga. I tell you what, it's amazing the technology that they come up with for an active amputee that wants to run. I played basketball in my feet.
Wow.
Jump rope. I could do pretty much everything that we talked about. Some of the things I have to make modifications to, like if I want to go scuba diving or if I want to go swimming with my legs on, I make some adjustments. But for the most part, it's just amazing what these feet can do. And I have to MacGyver a few stuff myself just to kind of figure out stuff too.
Sure. And then going back to a little bit more to the triathlon, because I am curious about your training, because I like talking about that kind of stuff when it comes to guys who are really athletic like yourself. But is most of that going to be endurance and literally just running and swimming and biking a whole heck of a lot? Or is there any resistance training piece to that just to keep the strength up?
My training regimen consisted of at least 1 to 2 resistant training, mainly because with the running portion, as a double amputee, I don't have those stabilizer muscles. And so I focus a lot on my hips and my glutes and my butt. And so I have to constantly keep that at top strength condition. And with my disease, I have to make sure to not overdo it. Otherwise it can trigger some things. And so I try to find that fine tune line in my hips to keep that stable. And then just overall, like in the off season, I do a lot of heavier lifting, especially coming close to hunting season. I like to put on a few pounds and bulk up, just because I'm carrying a lot of gear, my camping gear, my food, my water, rifle or archery equipment. So I would say with triathlon, it's good to have a blend, but most of it is just building up that tolerance and figuring out a diet pattern that your body can accept, a lot of that carbohydrates and use them quickly. And, you're burning a lot of calories. And so the key for me was finding a way to recover, eating correctly, getting enough sleep, stretching, doing, recovery workouts where I'm biking at a slower pace or I'm swimming at a slower pace, just so my body can recover. So that way I can take it to the next level on the next workout.
Talk to me about the mental game behind that, because you've got a ton of motivation going in to keep going, but I'm sure with that kind of distance, there's got to be a point at which your body or your brain says, no. So how are you continuing to bust past those plateaus? Because I'll tell you, there was an event many years ago called Tough Mudder, and it was a 14-mile obstacle course, but they've got breaks every so often as you're going over the obstacles, because there's no way in heck I would have even completed a half marathon. So I can't mentally, I'm thinking I'm shutting down way before I even get through the running portion.
Yeah. No, it definitely is the 4th element to the triathlon is the mental game. Because like I said, on paper, it seems insane to do, one of those activities or sports, but to do them all 3 and then have to do it in a certain time frame, it seems impossible. However, the body is amazing and the mind is amazing, but the mind truly can dictate what the body can and cannot do. And for me, I try to keep my focus on the task at hand. If I looked at from the beginning of my venture, like my first 5K, it was hard. Like I freaking whined about it. I struggled. I was gasping like Fatty McGee. And I was just thinking to myself, like, holy cow, if I'm struggling on 3 miles, how am I supposed to do 140? And I tried to block that out. A couple examples of some mental blocks that I had and how I was able to overcome them was after my infection, which was that 6-month mark before my race. My coach had scheduled me for a half Ironman just a few months afterwards. And I was very worried about it because I was like, man, I don't know if I'm ready. And he got me all pumped up. And one piece of advice that got me through that race and was able to get me in a position to think about the Ironman was to not think about doing this half Ironman and any point in the race, ask myself, how am I supposed to do this twice? I'm going to be dying, because that was the truth. I knew this was going to be painful just to do this half Ironman. And I did. I made a promise to myself I wasn't going to think about the future. I just needed to get through the swim, the bike, and the run, and then I could worry about the next race. And that right there is focusing on the task at hand. Sometimes a lot of our goals become destroyed because we think about that they're too big. And honestly, having big goals are great. They're awesome. But focus on the first step. Work on the first item. And then once that's checked off your list, focus on some of the things you can control. And then you can take on to the next step. Otherwise, a lot of people get discouraged. And then another mental block I had was actually on the Ironman. And I was, this is in Florida. And like I said, I've never done this distance before. So that was a factor of how my body was going to respond to that distance and that time being on the course. And I got through the swim through a breeze. The bike was awesome. The run, which I knew from the get-go was going to be the hardest, the biggest struggle. I was struggling within the first couple of miles. I started throwing up. My body couldn't accept any more calories. Like I'd try to eat something and then I'd throw it up. And then I'd try to drink something and I was just feeling sick, and I just kept pushing. I went another mile and I was like, man, what's going on? And I was just feeling dizzy. I thought I was going to get, pass out. And all of a sudden I smelled this chicken broth someone was cooking on the course. And I started drinking the chicken broth, and it was just the ticket my body needed to get going for a few more miles. And I got to mile 133 on the course. And at this point, my body, again, started rejecting some of the recovery or any kind of functions of keep going, especially in my limbs. When I'm running, I carry extra socks to fill the void because I lose so much volume in my sockets through sweating and the heat and so forth. But this time around, I felt my sockets were very tight, super tight, almost like someone was choking my limbs. And it was very painful, very, very painful. So I'd sat down for a second on the side of the road, and as I pulled them off, just blood was going everywhere. And I, pulled off my sleeve, and it was just like hamburger meat, just all kinds of blisters and cuts. And, my adrenaline was going so much that I tried not to think of the pain. And because of the hard impact and the intensity that was going on to my limbs, instead of it shrinking, it was swelling up. And I was, my first thought or knee-jerk reaction, and it was the right decision, was to put my sockets back on as soon as possible. Wow. Because otherwise they would get too big, and I couldn't put my legs back on. And where I was in the course, I had 6 miles left, and I couldn't crawl that far and make the cutoff time. So I got my legs on, and it was super painful to put them back on. And I'd start walking and, try to run, and then it would just get so painful. So I had to take the legs off so I can get circulation again, hurry put them back on. And I was really not going anywhere. And at this rate, I was worried about not finishing. And I tried to think of things to keep my mind off of the pain and the struggles. And I started thinking of things that I know I can be grateful for. Yeah, I was in the dumps. I was in a dark spot, but I wanted to be grateful for something, focus on things that are positive in my life. So I started off with something real simple. That's my wife and my kids, how much I loved them, how much they supported me, how much they kept me going. And then I started focusing on things like my work. My boss was supportive of me, allowing me to come out here, and my employees, the house that I live in, the food. And I started thinking about some of the things I had, still left, like my eyes and my hands and my knees, that I could talk in my mind. I was super grateful of that. And as I was thinking of these things that I'm grateful for, the time just started going so fast. And, it seemed like 6 miles, I was down to 2 miles. And I was like, oh, this is working. And I'm running, right? I got my second wind. And ultimately, what pushed me for the last end is that I ended up thinking of all the things I was grateful for. And the last one I was grateful for was I was grateful for my feet. And I was grateful that I was an amputee. I was grateful for all the problems I had. I was grateful for all the struggles that I went through, all the people that were able to help me, all the doors that I was able to open, people that I was able to talk to, inspire, the challenges that my kids saw me go through, that they can maybe overcome themselves down the road by seeing their dad do something. And that maybe that's just the motivation to get them to the next level. And I'm looking at, this is a blessing. And that joy, I held on as tight as I could until I got to the finish line.
Wow. That's incredibly inspiring.
Thanks.
We could be tear up a little bit. So is the physical aspect of all of these things, the outdoor sports and the triathlon, is that really your main outlet, and for just getting your mind off things and just really enjoying what you're doing? Or is there anything else that you're also passionate about? I mean, you've got the 501c3 obviously, but
I not necessarily. Like, the triathlon is always dear to my heart because it really was the foundation of taking things to the next level. But I have found that after the Ironman, this is 2019, and 2020 was such a bummer year. All the races got canceled, that, I needed to have something.
mm-hmm.
I feel like being comfortable or not doing anything or not having goals in mind is dangerous. I feel the adversary, that's his playground. That's when he can start feeding you fears or feeding you doubt in your mind, is when you're not doing anything. And I knew that was dangerous. And so, I stepped it up with a lot of the hunting that wasn't affected by COVID. And now with this year, I was able to get a triathlon in. I'm still planning on doing some more. Unfortunately, at this time, I don't have the green light from the big boss, aka my wife, to do another Ironman for a little bit. But there's other goals I have in mind that I want to strive to. So, climbing certain mountains. I actually have a big goal in mind that I'm trying to find the pieces and the timing to put this together, sponsors, etc. And that's to swim the English Channel with no legs. And that's something that I'm having. I'm trying to convince the wife that it's fine and safe, but it's a big defeat, big feat. It's pretty much a marathon swim from France to England, but it's something that I've been very intrigued about. Swimming is the best of my three in the triathlon. And I have a little bit what I call insulation on my body, AKA fat. And that extra insulation is required to make that defeat, because it can be very, very, very cold water. And that's where a lot of people fail, is that their organs start shutting down on the swim. So it's something that I'm doing research on. I'm confident it's something I could do, but I want to make it as safe and gives me the best opportunity to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. What would your if somebody was trying to get amputee or not, somebody trying to go into a triathlon or even compete to achieve in a Ironman, any advice or words of wisdom you can give them? Something you wish you would have known going in, man, this is way harder, I could have done this better, for somebody who's trying to do that?
I would look at every race that you do, the first race of that distance. I highly suggest you build up to it.
Yeah.
To just go from hospital bed to Ironman. Not saying that it can't be done, but it would not be my recommendation. But to look at each race as, it doesn't matter what happens here. You're going to learn, you're going to get better from it. And the best thing about doing your first 5K or your first marathon is you're going to have your best time. And that's what it's important about. For me, I tell people, it's like, you know what? I just hope to be the top person to finish the finish line with no legs. That's my goal. In this race, people on the race are like, oh, really? Is there other guys, with no legs? I only saw one guy. It's like, yeah, there's just one guy. This hits me. But that's what I tell people. And my advice is to just look at it as that way. And sometimes you psych yourself out saying, oh, I struggled with the swim because I panicked, or, I got kicked in the face, or I crashed on my bike on a flat tire. I had all of those things in a race. In fact, my last race was the biggest suckfest when it comes to scenarios. Is the water here, we're in a big drought, and the lake was down so low that where the bikes were, you had to run across this mud flat. Ooh. And it was just nasty mud. And then the water was so low that it was like 2 feet of water. And then finally, when you get to the last buoy, you can actually swim without touching the ground. Oh. And that was only like an eighth of the swim. So everything, I'm just crawling through the mud with my arms, and I look by and I can see people just hopping over me. And by then I was so exhausted. My hands were so far down deep in the mud, it was up to my shoulders. And I couldn't even take like my sweatsuit on. I couldn't get my legs on. Finally, somebody dumped a bucket of water on me to get all the mud off. But yeah, I didn't expect that to happen. I showed up to the race and I'm like, sweet, let's do it. And then when I got down to the start pad, I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm sure the prep work is. And what do you were mentioning you're having to eat and drink stuff throughout the race. Is it mostly liquids or just energy? Like what are you doing?
So the bike course, I have a pattern that I trained prior to, so I know my stomach can do the best to handling it. I've done things like at the halfway part on the bike, which is about 50 miles in, they have what they call a special needs bag, and I put like, certain chafing stuff in there, an extra thing of sunblock. I put a pickle in there to kind of help with the electrolytes, and I take gels. I also do a kind of a liquid carbs. I call it Carbo Rocket. That's got, your sugars and your salts and your carbohydrates. I drink that. They're about 900 calories in a bottle. Dang. I drink a few of those on the bike, and then on the run, I try to eat a little bit more of a gummies, because my stomach can't handle any more gels. And then I try to eat things like fruit or or flat Coke. And they have that on Ironman, especially. They try to have that out throughout the race. And finally, like I said, once my stomach was able to come off that queasiness, I was able to eat things a little bit better. And once I started eating, I felt a lot better too.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, and I mean, you mentioned somebody happened to have chicken broth on the course. I guess it's pretty unpredictable depending on, what you're going through at that particular point in time. But what do you do if there's no other options? I mean, I guess it's just, push through or end the race, right? At that point.
Yeah. I carried a fuel belt, which I kept like extra wrenches and screws in case something comes loose on my legs.
Okay.
And then I would tuck in these little salt tablets, and I had a little extra gels that, have all the amino acids and calories in them. So
Gotcha. Wow.
Just as a backup.
Sure. And then is there a van going with you guys throughout this, or backup medical, that kind of thing, that's following you guys throughout the entire race?
Yeah, they're out there sporadically at they call them aid stations, where they have your food. They would communicate if someone collapsed on the course, or they just sit down and say, I'm done. And, I had that happen where I passed that message on to somebody and say, hey, the young lady, in the blue shorts, she's sitting on that curb. She says she wants to be pulled off the course. So,
gotcha. Is the dropout rate pretty high for that, or do most people who start that race end up finishing?
It depends on the conditions. So we have one here in St. George, southern Utah. It's hot desert conditions.
Oof.
One year it was not. It was like 50s and 40s ish in the morning, and people weren't prepared and they dropped out when they got into the water. Wow. Or it's the opposite, where it is so hot that it's, I think one race is like 40% of the people dropped out. But in the race that I did, I don't remember, there was quite a few, but not, I would say more on average that did drop out. If you crash your bike, that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
You hit your head, that's no bueno.
Yeah.
Or you pull a muscle or break something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it happens. People die on the course too. We had was it Coeur d'Alene or St. George? I can't remember, but they had somebody die, drowned. We had that too. So.
Oh my word. For the your kids. So are they as into the hunting and the fishing and running around getting active as much as you are, or are they taking after you in any regard in that way?
Oh, absolutely. I love that part about my life, is introducing it to them. Even my 3-year-old, I come home, and if I even have one piece of fishing equipment out, whether I'm tying a fly or getting things put away, she's like, oh, we're going fishing, let's go fishing. She's just constantly bugging me about it, and she's good about it. I feel bad because we haven't had good success the last few times, but she's my 3-year-old. I feel like she's going to be the biggest person inside of fishing and hunting. I do have 2 other girls that like to go. They're not into the hunting yet, they're still young. And then I have a 12-year-old boy that's done everything with me. We ice fish together, we go, we hunt ducks and birds, and he just turned 12 this year. And so in the state of Utah, you're able to now pursue big game such as deer and elk, buffalo. And he drew, which is like a process to be lucky enough to in an application, he drew a deer tag, so he gets to hunt deer this year. So it'll be a fun experience for him.
That'll be phenomenal. And on the what do I'm assuming your wife is taking care of the family while you're working and doing the triathlons and all that stuff. But what do you do for work?
I work in Vernal, Utah. Okay. We have 2 major counties in this basin that are small town. Each one of them is about 10 to 15,000 people in each town, and we provide the internet, and we do a lot of cellular TV. We have cable. We have a multimedia company. But internet is our big thing. That's where the main provider for this basin. And I work in a retail store where I have a group of team members that set residential business accounts up. So.
Gotcha. Very good. And then is your wife also doing all these things? Is she into hunting like the kids and you are?
Sometimes I wish she was, just because it'd be fun because when you're out, on a 5-day hunt in the woods all by yourself, and you have nothing to talk to, nobody to talk to, the squirrels, you scroll through your phone, you see a picture of your hot wife, and you're like, oh man, she's so beautiful. I wonder what she's doing. And sometimes I'm in cell service and sometimes I'm in not cell service. And I wish, there'd be times I wish she was there, but at the same time, I think it's a good release. And not to say that our marriage is horrible, but it's a good thing that we have something that we both like to do separate. Like, I don't like to go shopping. She likes to go shopping. And it's so, in a ways, it's good. Fishing, we do go fishing together. That's an easy one. She used to be a school teacher, and she'll go back to work here once my youngest is able to go to school.
Okay. Gotcha. Are you guys, out of curiosity, are you guys homeschooling at all right now or doing anything like that?
No.
Okay.
We are not. We thought about it, but just with some of the things, but our particular area is pretty conservative. They haven't put some serious restrictions or implement any strict rules. However, they are going to go 1 day a week where we homeschool. And then, that's everybody has to do that. And then it's 4 days a week at school.
Gotcha. Awesome. What's the next big event that you're going to be doing?
So this weekend I'm hosting an event on an archery elk hunt.
Oh, nice.
And so we're doing that for a couple of days, and then we are having a fundraiser. We're doing a golf tournament. We're also trying to raise money to build a facility down in Oklahoma where we can take disabled people on hunts down there. We have some property down there on a lease. But as far as like on the endurance side of things, next year I'm going to start participating in 10K swims. There's a couple that swim across large lakes here in the state of Utah. So I'm just trying to find a buddy that will be kind of my pilot. He'll be on a kayak. So it's weird. Some of the rules are for these long distance swimming, you do have to be chartered. And so that's what I'm doing. So that's kind of the work up to the next goal.
Fantastic. If people want to find your charitable organization and donate or participate in some way, where can they do that?
You can hit our website. It's doutah.org, doutah.org. We have a donate button there. If you guys, if one of your listeners want to, we actually have a rare opportunity where we are selling a couple of our whitetail hunts, so that way we can use some of that money to build kind of an accessible facility for our wheelchair guys. We are going to do that this year, so if they want to do that, have them reach out to me. My social media, like you said, is try_no-feet. Try is spelled TRI.
Perfect. Any other websites or anything you wanted to plug?
No, that's it. thebomb.com.
I love it. Well, hopefully, I found your story to be incredibly intriguing, and you're a testament to what can be done, not what can't be done. And I love that you're pushing that message. I mean, as active and as involved as you are with so many different things is incredibly inspirational. I think our audience is going to resonate really well with that. But I really appreciate you coming on. And follow this guy on Instagram, get involved with the charity, donate or participate however you feel led. And thank you so much for your time and effort on this, and much best of luck in the new events that you have coming up.
Oh, thanks, Ashton. I appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, anytime. Alrighty, boss. We'll catch you later then.
Okay. Take care.
Take care. Thank you for listening. Please give FreedomCast a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would mean a lot to our business. Plus, it's fun to read y'all's reviews. See you next time.